In the bottom left of the finals of the EPT North American Open Cup, in the bottom left, it is Solar. And in the top right, it is GuMiHo. GuMiHo defeating Max Pax to get here. Not sure who Solar defeated. Byun, probably. It's a lot of the same faces in the Korean Open Cup, and a lot of the same faces for the top 4 of the North American Open Cup, which are very similar faces to the Korean Cup. Currently, the Korean Cup is being dominated by Dark, and I don't think Dark always signs up for North America. It doesn't like the time that it's in as much. But Solar definitely plays a lot and has won a lot of Open Cups. TVZ between these two hopefully is interesting. GuMiHo does display some weirder tendencies in the matchup. If he is going to display some of his old-fashioned weirdness, it's usually in TVZ. Solar is about as straight and narrow as you can get most of the time, but as a pro does, he basically has to go into some cheeses. Like, has to throw it in every now and again. So in this case, he's going to go for a 17 pool, not really a cheese. Could be that he thinks GuMiHo is capable of directly opening up with the 2 racks, what Korean Terran isn't, am I right? Or it could be that he's looking to grab a couple of lings and throw off GuMiHo's build order. Unfortunately for Solar, considering he's not dedicating to this pool with any gas, this pool is basically completely ineffective against a Command Center first. Command Center first finishes before the lings get over there, so they can't even delay the Command Center. And the likelihood of them actually getting into the main should be low. There's always that chance, but it should be low. So GuMiHo gets the better end of the openers, and Solar did just dedicate to 6 lings, so this is one of the least economical openers that you could do as a Zerg without, being straight up cheesy. He could still find the Reaper out of position and then come in and kill a couple of SEVs, which might be what he's already thinking is the best case scenario. The Overlord must have seen something. I didn't see literally anything. That's interesting. The thing is that a lot of Terrans do also do 1 Marine openers to try and chase after Overlords. So Solar might have been wary of that. But yeah, this is the worst case scenario for Solar. Command Center first. Lings pop right as the Reaper pops. No way to get into the main base to even buy some time, cause some chaos. And now Solar just tries to split his lings to save some of them. So, bit of a nasty opener for Solar. At least he gets his 3rd base up and running before the Reaper comes across the map. I guess is the one thing he's got. And then GuMiHo is going into a factory build. He does have only 2 guys in this gas. I don't know if that's on purpose or not. A starport is on the way. So, oh, and a tech lab. That's a tech lab, not a reactor. Cyclone. Marine drop. I guess. Gonna go chase around some of the overlords that Solar has on the map. Solar, I'm pretty sure, subscribes to the 1 overlord on the side of the map theory. It's usually not very close to the base. So I would say Solar is often relying on very limited amounts of information. But the Cyclone killing it is going to ensure that. And he's moving. Oh, what is he doing? What are you doing, GuMiHo? Okay, he does it and then he moves. Okay. Alright, so he's going to add a Cyclone and then go into Hellion Banshee? Interesting. Well, this is going to confuse Solar. It confused me. Barracks had been lifted this entire time, so that's how he's going to kill an Overlord. But only the 1. And you don't go across the map with the Cyclone unless it does have a medevac to help it, because if it goes across the map and speed is done, which it should be, you get it killed. Solar, seeing as the barracks was lifted as well, is probably less wary that this was a medevac coming out. He still doesn't know for sure if it's Banshees or not. That lane got denied. But what he does know pretty much for sure is that it's Mech. The barracks being lifted for that long at a point in which it is usually getting a tech lab and adding on stim is pretty damning. So Solar is going to go ahead and drop a Roach Warren and probably just prepare for that. And even figure that it'll be Battle Mech because of the Cyclone opener. Just a little bit of a nod towards that. And GuMiHo, well, he's one of the few Terrans who is bothering to play Mech. Still not a very popular choice, so he is doing his typical GuMiHo things, in which he's always been more inclined to Mech than other Terrans, no matter the meta. If it is in meta, then he just is really good at it. And he did used to have, I think, the best and most reoccurring build, which was his Thor drop. He's not doing it now, but I don't think I've seen him do it in a while. He gets 2 Thors and 2 Medivacs and all the Hellions that you can get in that time process as well. And he actually does a push, but I haven't seen him do it in quite some time. This is just Battle Mech. Very quickly into the upgrades, making sure to have the minerals and gas necessary for that. And then the Hellion's trying to get some drone damage, but shouldn't happen. Should not happen. Now, Battle Mech is going to be a little bit more in your face than Tank Mech, so Solar can't just make all the drones and all the hatcheries and think he's going to get away with it, but it is still Mech, so he is going to have some time to probably even get up to Hive, unless he plans on busting GuMiHo on his 3 bases. But seeing as they're also Banshees, now you also have to be worried about the potential of Banshee speed, since that's kind of poked its head in and out of the meta. It's not on the way. It is only 2 Banshees with Cloak, used so far defensively, but that might also discourage some of the attempted Roach busts if you think you can. 8 Queens is a pretty typical number, really, for TVZ. 4th base coming up from Solar, and now we are just waiting for some Cyclone Hellion action, since the upgrades are almost done and the Cyclone count is getting a little higher. I think we're close to it. Just needs to be rallied. He just needs to rally them. I think that might be the problem. He's not rallying them. Maybe it's unimportant. The Hellions are still trying to be as active as possible. 1 armory. You don't really need 2 when you go Battle Mech, and it should be for the armor. And a 4th command center already down. Sub 7 minutes. Pretty good timing there. Solar will absolutely be going up into that Hive. Adding on offensive upgrades only. Ling, Baneling, Ravager, Viper. When all is said and done for him. Making sure to just continuously scout. He might see a glimpse of tank production, or he might see a glimpse of more Banshees, or he might even see the 4th command center timing. All good things to scout as you still go on. Because you know it's 3-base Battle Mech, but there's still a couple things you want to scout. And the double Banshees finally get offensive, kill 4 drones, and then skedaddle pretty freaking quickly. Yeah, ZVT, no matter who you're facing, what style you're facing, it's pretty typical to have, well, 1 queen for each hatchery, first of all, so 3 or 4, 4 now. And then 3 or 4 extra for transfuse, defense, and creep spread. Infestors coming out. I mean, it is Battle Mech, so Infestors are going to be useful. No pathogen glands, so you're going to have to wait a little while before they have a fungal. GuMiHo does see the infestation pit, knows that a Hive is probably on the way, should be wary of Infestors. Doesn't see it wiggly jiggly, so might be able to tell that there won't be an immediate fungal, but that's a risky game to play, I think. And now that there's enough Cyclones with their upgrade, of course, to actually start to combat this a little bit more. Solar does have more than he was letting on. The Lings do come spilling forth, but into the Hellbats. Now they transformed at the very last second, so they weren't the most brutal they could be, but all of the Roaches have disappeared. And Solar, I think, underestimated good old-fashioned Battle Mech. I mean, he really wasn't totally prepared for an army fight. He didn't have any Ravagers. He didn't set up his Lings trying to get us around like he usually would. His Infestors weren't ready to go. And that actually might be pretty damning for his game. He's not going to straight up lose right now, but that's pretty bad to have that happen. A complete removal of his army, as well as additional drones going down to Banshees that are still alive. And, you know, Battle Mech doesn't let up as much as Tank Mech does. If you can push back Tank Mech, that does take a while to rebuild. Battle Mech, especially if the Cyclones all live, Hellions are super easy to reproduce and get on the front lines. So Solar does kind of need to go in a bit of emergency mode right now. Fortunately, the fungals will be good at buying time, potentially getting that fantastic fungal as well. That's a pretty good one right there. Not a whole lot of punish so far, but there's the second one, and now the Roaches and Ravagers collapsed in on the Cyclones, exactly what Solar needed. Even still, GuMiHo supply looking good because of the earlier engagement not going well for Solar. A couple of random Cyclones on the wrong side of town, honestly. Banshee's still getting damage done. In total, 18 drones dead. It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. Alongside killing the army, we can see that Solar is actually struggling to get So we need to keep a decent supply. Yeah, a Zerg player who's getting all of this hive technology, all the technology in general, trying to expand and trying to defend, might not be accruing that much of a bank usually, but you know, typically they are kind of capable of doing almost everything at the same time against this mech if they're playing really, really well. And it just was that underestimation of the army that says made Solar, again, in a bit more of a tense scenario than he'd be hoping for. Finally has his Vipers. Abducts will be helpful, Blinding Clouds will be helpful, but GuMiHo's also moving away from that battle mech into regular mech. So he still has enough to be pressuring. That's still a decent battle mech army, but he's also getting into basically the superior form of mech in a certain sense, I suppose. And if that arrives on Solar's doorstep before Solar is really prepared to go, it'll be even more disastrous than the previous time Solar was unprepared. GuMiHo's also getting some pinwheels, so the Banshees, I guess, will be remade. Yeah. And they'll be flying around. He's also double expanding, knowing that he can get away with it, which so far is so good. He's been very good at removing the creep spread of Solar too, and he managed to kill a couple of queens with that miscalculated defense from Solar as well. So the creep spread's not very impressive. Hellions will always threaten the drones, and here we go, roasty toasty. Yeah, it was a beautiful lineup, and the Cyclones just finding this entire base under-defended. The army of Solar on the right side defending a drone that was going to make another base, and it looks like GuMiHo has actually given the Zerg army a little bit more credit, maybe. He probably could have gotten a few more lock-ons and maybe even killed that hatchery, but he was very, very afraid of the army coming forth. And from behind as well, right? Then he can't escape. But GuMiHo is ready to go for attack number 3, and this is the new and improved attack that includes those tanks. We can also see him upgrading some of the bio upgrades. I think you're going to see some ghosts pop out eventually too. GuMiHo is in a very good position. He's really kept up the pace of this TVZ. Solar has managed to recover some of the earlier problems, but it comes down to execution. Anti-armor missile, very effective. That was a big one on the Roach Ravager army, and a Viper gets locked on. Oh, did it? I thought it did, but I guess it didn't die. Just barely didn't die. And Solar, you know, he buys a little bit of time with that initial engagement, does need to get back into the swing of things. Some more Viper energy, more Banelings, more Ravagers, because GuMiHo ain't stopping. Tanks are not siegeless, that was a bit awkward. Hellbat's gonna be on the front lines more so, right? GuMiHo does pull back, had just enough Hellbats to take care of most of the Lings, but that concave that Solar was given, because GuMiHo was a little underprepared, he really didn't do such a great job of leapfrogging, means that Solar might be able to push this back. Cyclone's still available, and the Banshee firing away for free in the high ground. I mean, that's going to be freebies. Lots of freebie Ravager kills. This Banshee going after the hatchery as well. And the Cyclones now looking at those Vipers. They really want them to get 2 out of 3, so that's pretty nice. And the Banshee's still getting so many free kills. GuMiHo not just on 2 additional bases, but also building more bases. There's those ghosts that I was talking about, finishing up his upgrades. Really clean play here from the mech player, while also being capable of being pretty active, because Battle Mech started this off, so he wasn't just ever letting Solar chill. There's no point in which Solar really felt all that comfortable. Basically, the moments leading up to the point in which GuMiHo had about 8 Cyclones was the moments that Solar was allowed to chill. And then since then, it has been just trying to get prepared for the next attack. And it's always a little bit later than I think a Zerg would really want to be preparing for the attack. It's always on his side of the map, dangerously close to his hatcheries. And again, that lack of creep spread resulting in some better Hellion run-bys. Solar pinching pennies for most of this game, has not been able to throw down a gajillion spine crawlers to safeguard him against this harassment. It's going to be a continued problem. In total, 40 drones have gone down, only 1 SUV. GuMiHo has a spotting barracks, I like that. He's taking the Xel'Naga control, could even take the command center and turn into a planetary. He has the capability of breaking the cooling tower, but it's leaving it up for now. That could be broken and that would kill the tank, I guess. Ghosts caught up against it is unideal, and there you go. Yep, the tank dies. So does the Xel'Naga, so now GuMiHo could break that and take the command center if he wanted. We even have some air upgrades now on the way. GuMiHo might add on a couple of Vikings to deal with some of the Viper presence, but he also might just be buffing his Banshees that he is still producing 1 at a time. So far, he's made 5 Banshees, and I feel like they've all been fairly effective. The initial one's killed some drones, the other one's killed some Ravagers, one almost... Well, probably could have taken on way more drones. It targeted the hatchery instead. Hallion's once again on the space, because 2 Spine Crawlers ain't going to be enough anyways. It's more when they get 4 or 5 that you're just... You know, is this worth it? I don't know. GuMiHo expanding like a Zerg player, has the bank of a Zerg player as well. Solar is just holding on, but he is holding on. So, you know, a lot of other Zerg players would have already crumbled, I think. GuMiHo just keeps on increasing the might of his army. He's not just getting stuck in one type of composition. Goes for the snipes instead of the guaranteed EMPs and actually does get the kill. Only one Blinding Cloud really coming down here, only on one tank as well. There is a depth to the Mech army that Solar is not going to break, I believe, with this particular push. He's trying to get whatever he could. And he did clear out most of the frontline tanks, but some of these ghosts left over are going to get some snipes as the retreat is now worse. As ghosts come into play, you can't retreat nearly as much as you would against a usual Mech army or even a bio army, and these tanks can advance forward and once again take advantage of the gold base. I'm still surprised we haven't seen a planetary here, because that would just create such a brutal choke that could technically mine. I mean, if he doesn't want to break open these rocks, okay, whatever he wants to do, but... I feel like a defensive planetary in this position that he's been just hammering the entire time would be really difficult for Solar to take on. He is going to get a planetary eventually by the looks of things, just needs to kind of get around to it. Solar has also managed to take the bottom right side pretty much, but it's still a shocking number of bases that the Terran has grabbed and sufficiently mined from to, you know, be worth it. Like, that's not ideal for a Zerg player who's looking at a potential late game TVZ. Another attempt at breaking the Terran. Doesn't look like it's going to be so good. The Ghosts managed to pull back. They're going to get those snipes if they can. The Thors were standing their ground. The tanks were so spread out. I mean, it's like Solar is trying to knock down GuMiHo on his side of the map, but it's not. It's not actually his side of the map. GuMiHo has just advanced his presence so steadily forward that Solar is... It's kind of like, no matter what he does, he's not really winning. Unless he totally and completely knocked this army down. Which is what he's trying to do. More Lings coming in. Tanks are spread out, so the Lings at all these types of surrounds. Thors are kind of in the awkward place over here, killing the hatchery. Ghost once again living. And this is all before the planetary is done, to be fair. So Solar finally, maybe finding the secret ingredient. More Lings. To actually break this position, GuMiHo's going to have to restart his progress and all the static defense, getting his army back over here. GuMiHo also might want to sacrifice, you know, maybe even 15 or 20 SCVs. That also could be a problem, as Solar just manages to break that. It still wasn't the most convincing break ever. Despite the tanks not really having a lot to say there in that engagement thanks to the Lings, it still wasn't like, oh my god, complete disaster for GuMiHo. GuMiHo might be having a tougher time rebuilding, but he has the bank for it. It's just the Terran production that's currently stalling him out. Solar, by the way, speaking of drones, now at 92. I guess doesn't exactly have a bigger army than GuMiHo anyways. Is he mining with 92 drones? I don't know about that. He might still be, actually. It looks like he still is. But the amount of bases that you have for, again, a 20-25 real late game TVZ is very low for a Zerg player. You know, ideally, they have taken these bases and are the ones fighting over their control of it, rather than barely unable to stop the Terran from mining on these bases, right? So Solar, I mean, literally, as a Zerg player, you have to worry about that endgame conclusion. What happens when all of the minerals are gone? Who managed to soak up the minerals and the gas? Ideally, you're the Zerg player should, because they expand faster and they trade out resources much worse than the Terran. 7,000 resource difference isn't so bad, actually, as far as TVZ goes, but GuMiHo has just done such a good job expanding. Still has the bigger bank, but again, not remaxing nearly as fast. That's actually currently the problem. He could have actually had so much more army on the front lines, but his production just isn't capable of it. I would say he needs to add, you know, 3 more factories. He's only on... Oh, 6 is a weird number, so 2 more factories, I guess? It might seem like a minor point, but I think that was the biggest point for that particular engagement right there, was that he just didn't have his maxed out army. Brood Lords apparently made their way into the game, but literally only 2. I'm not sure that's really all that helpful. If there was no anti-air whatsoever for the Terran, they're helpful, but there's ghosts? Question mark? We don't have snipe? So I guess this is a problem. No Thors anymore either. Now GuMiHo's starting to make some Thors. Lings have also been trying to take down some of the SCVs on the right side. Better this than absolutely nothing, right? And it looks like Solar has finally, with the two Broodlords, two hero Broodlords, man, has finally broken the left side of the map completely. GuMiHo is going to emphasize the right side of the map at this point. So he's giving up this base, which he never really got mining from. He never got the gold base up, so Solar is going to be feeling a lot better now that he has two bases to fall back on. Plus, he's been mining from the gold at least a little bit before GuMiHo got over here. Now forced to evacuate. But it is going to be a simple switch, isn't it? Solar's going to go over to the left side after the right side is the one under pressure. Solar can't just willy-nilly throw down hatcheries, but that's probably the way it's going to go eventually. GuMiHo realizing transformation servos wasn't researched, and it probably could have been a long time ago, would have helped some of the Helene Hellbat harassment. Only now getting it, especially with the Thors too, that's probably why he remembered. The Thors have popped out, but I don't know where they are. Here they come now. It's less about the Broodlords being over here. They're not. More just about, GuMiHo needs army. He needs army over here. Solar has also swung across altitude to come over and defend his bases, which so far he is. He's actually defending them. They're still mining. And the Broodlords are... I found two Broodlords so funny. They are harassing. They are going to kill an orbital if GuMiHo doesn't pay attention. Quay? But apparently. Maybe not the most important thing, though. Far more important is whether or not GuMiHo can take down these bases. Finally takes down the gold. Looking to take down this base. And as I said, Solar didn't exactly have minerals to just willy-nilly throw down bases here. It would have been ideal had he been able to, though, because this wouldn't have been nearly as painful as losses. But he does lose two pretty important bases. Has only gotten one more base up and running. This one that is partially mined out. Still doesn't have quite enough minerals to throw down. Extra bases here as he still needs to max out. And Solar is literally running low on minerals at this point. When he had those two bases, if he could have gotten these two, he's not running out of minerals. He just needs to get drones over there. But now he is actually running out of minerals. Being hit somewhat by both sides as well. Hellbat harassment to the left. Main-ish army to the right. GuMiHo might be looking to take these bases. I don't know how he's planning because, been mentioned about the Zerg not having minimum minerals to mine from. The Terran doesn't have it either. GuMiHo down to 6/6 SCVs. Relying a bit on mules, but he does have a lot of orbitals. Tons of scans going down. He wants to know where the infestor sharks are headed, where the army is headed. Clean up, of course, the creep spread. He actually managed to miss some of the shark festers. But I think he knows they're in play. This base Solar absolutely needed. Well, he just needs bases in general. It's really unfortunate that a Zerg player, 23 minutes into the game, does not have a bank to replace a hatchery. That's a bad sign. He barely gets enough to replace the gold, but look at all these drones. So he's so oversaturated. And GuMiHo now is mining from the base. Now he's taking away the minerals, so even if Solar eventually broke this, there wouldn't be much to take from it. Infestors are scanned, perfectly timed with these tanks. Neuroparasite goes down, but it's going to be an ultimately unimportant battle, honestly. It's like a good grab, but it's the Solar needs more. Solar needs to really take a really good engagement, take down his opponent's bases, and this doesn't really count. He's even getting somewhat surrounded, losing all of his spellcasters, losing all of his ravagers. While GuMiHo's supply is also getting torn down, he has the bases mining. He has the mules to drop. So I think it's still a very different scenario. And especially with Solar losing all of the units that could really start to pay for themselves, Ravagers and Infestors can probably become a very resource-efficient army, but he lost all of them, so... And you got basic roaches and lynx coming out? I don't know, man. I don't know. GuMiHo needs to be careful as a mech player to be overextending. If he's not close to maxed out, if he's not at 150 supply, his army's not really cohesive, but... It seems like that was not truly a problem. Solar eventually, sub 100 supply, taps out after an exhausting 24.5-minute game where Solar was he was behind the entire time. He never was in a position that Zerg players would want to be in. But he Was not about to give up, was he? Was forced out of this game. GG's. Game number 2 is going to be on Royal Blood. In the top right, we have Solar. In the bottom left, it is GuMiHo. Things really went sideways when Solar underestimated the power of Battle Mech. I know that was pretty early on in the game that almost went 25 minutes. Ooh. But it was nonetheless a very important moment. The Zerg player, as I said, you know, very ideally and quite commonly in the pro scene, they do get up to 4 bases mining with Hive on the way, with a limited number of army units, and do sufficiently cover their army, their bases, to thrive afterwards, right? It's a bit of walking the line to an extent, but Zerg players have gotten pretty good at it, and they do thrive afterwards. But Solar really did just, he thought he had enough, so he didn't back away to then get just that many more reinforcements, and yeah, it was a struggle from then on. But GuMiHo, I oohed, because the SCV was headed out. GuMiHo is going to go for a 3 racks cheese after a long battle. This is so Korean Terran, oh my god. Solar should be very suspicious of this, but you know, that last game actually started with Solar not in the lead, with the pool against the command center first. But yeah, maybe also affecting his decision-making here. He's like, no way, I'm going to go for pool first. What if he goes command center first again? Unfortunately, that's going to get him a little less well set up to deal with the 3 racks. Would still be totally fine to defend it if he saw it. Is it going to be a 4 racks? Wait, no. No. No? No. No, you don't get an orbital with a 4 racks. You just saw the SCV moving weirdly. Sorry. But yeah, it would have been okay if the Overlord saw this, because it would have been able to see it very early and then still survive, and then drones could be pulled. This Overlord is going to see it, and when the drones are pulled, well, I guess either way, it's still difficult, even if he had seen it earlier. It's all around difficult. He's going to see how the micro goes. GuMiHo probably could have waited for a few more Marines. You know, he doesn't know if he was scouted or not. The Marines so far are managing to avoid the surround. A little bit of a juke going on there as well. SCVs, you know, they want to body block to an extent, but they also want to complete the bunker. And they're not able to do so far. One SCV gets surrounded, leaving only one SCV alive. Lings are out, tearing out the bunker too. So now if the bunker had to be remade, it'd be too far away from the hatchery to get those kills. SCV gets target fired by the Queen, and that is going to force the cancel. Solar doing okay on the defense. He did lose 7 drones, but do keep in mind GuMiHo has committed a little more than this. I think if this was a 2 racks in the same situation as Tier, I'd be kind of on GuMiHo's side, but it is 3 racks. It is a bit more committed. And GuMiHo still isn't transitioning. Oh, okay, he's adding a command center, okay. Assuming these Marines can continue to contain. Alright, I'm swinging back to GuMiHo favored. Swinging back to GuMiHo favored. If GuMiHo went, oh yeah, fair enough, I didn't have a bunker up, I'm gonna run away now. Then, it, you know, Solar gets his 3rd base up, and it continues along a certain expectation for TVZ, right? But GuMiHo just sticking around a little bit longer, looking to stop Solar from continuing on with his StarCraft 2 game. Has given himself an extra crucial seconds to not only delay Solar's economy, but also get his command center maybe up and running. Speed is on the way. Still about 15 seconds, 20 seconds to finish. Are there enough Lings to even kill that many Marines? Technically, no. No, there are not. Especially they don't have speed. And GuMiHo is pretty safe, I would say, yeah. Speed finishes up, but again, the Marine count I think is just too much. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunate though, unfortunate. Had Solar caught the Marines by surprise, fully surrounded before they could stutter step, that's a very different story. Had the Lings got into the natural and the main, that's also a bit of a different story, just so much to track down and kill. But that was, well, exactly what GuMiHo was hoping for. He managed to get back with his Marines and kill the Overlord and wall off with his barracks. And is now going to get a scout. And GuMiHo is actually pulling a bit of a switcheroo. He's gonna go into Triple Factory. This is when everyone gave Apollo so much credit for understanding that Marine King was going to transfer into Mech. Ah! It is still a rarity, you know, it was kind of a thing back then. But GuMiHo would be the one to do it if someone did do it again. Here he goes. Here he goes. Just enough Marines to stop any Ling threat anyways. If this was a Ling Baneling bust, which the barracks has confirmed that it's not, then that might have been a mistake. But it is absolutely not. Solar has no such floating overlord. The one that was even close to scouting died. So he has no idea that GuMiHo is going into Mech. Now he did see that the second barracks no longer was at home. Did he see it floating away? I don't actually know. But a bio player could sacrifice one barracks to scout, and I'd say that's still pretty freaking important, so they would do this. Sacrificing 2 barracks, that doesn't make any sense. And this barracks isn't even doing anything, so there are some signs. GuMiHo even clearing out the Ling with Marines before he shows his Hellions. And he's really trying to keep this facade up, and I think it's working. I absolutely believe Solar believes this is bio. I would love if he started some Marines, but nah. Scouts the lack of barracks usage, scouts the Hellions. I think that combined is already suspicious enough with the way the rest of this game is played out, but, you know, yeah. Bio players will get Hellions to safeguard them against Lings early on in the game. So maybe it's just that, maybe. So I don't see a Roachmore, and Spire comes down. It's still a bit ambiguous. Spire could be a play against Battle Mech, but it's a bit dangerous, isn't it? Especially as mutas are now worse against Cyclones, right? Nah, he still thinks that it's bio. And the Hellions here, they just revealed Blue Flame, so that might be the biggest tell. They revealed Blue Flame as they combat some Lings. Fortunately, not enough Hellions to kill everything and the drones. But Solar's gotta figure this out now, right? Can't really not continue with what he's chosen, though. But those Hellions also scouted the Spire, so we should have some missile turrets coming up. It's actually going to be a push right now with the Marines included. Lock-on's already on these Queens, going to force all their transfuses and their eventual death. There is no saving these Queens. Ling Baneling is not really even available. It's Ling couple of Banelings. It's not been an ideal game for Solar. He has been bamboozled, possibly to the very last second, literally up until the Cyclones appeared. And even as he gets a perfect engagement, Lings on Cyclones, Banelings on Hellions, it's still a very unfortunate scenario for Solar. Can't really afford to go into those mutas, needs to defend right here, right now. Lost most of his Queens, so lack of injects, lack of creep spread for later. Still dealing with the Cyclones and the micro. Again, mutas aren't going to be the end-all be-all of defending this. Would be if they were tanks for the Cyclones. GuMiHo is comfortably mining on 3 bases back at home with missile turrets, and Solar, well, might just want to go ahead and tap out of this one because it's just so far down the drain. There's no saving it. There's no salvaging this. Like, comebacks are really cool, and you feel really great when you have one, but then just watching your wedding ring circle the drain also doesn't feel great. Knowing you'll never get it back. And finally, Solar taps out. GuMiHo, with some big brain tactics, takes a 2-0 lead in his best of 5. So now in his last life on Gresvon, the bottom right it is Solar. The top left it is GuMiHo. Solar really not getting any luck in these games. And I have commonly referred to Solar as the unluckiest player in StarCraft 2. And there's not even really a point in arguing against it, in my opinion. Even people who don't believe in luck. Don't believe in luck. Whatever. The point is, things seem to happen in unfortunate circumstances to Solar, who is otherwise a very, very, very good player. I feel like if his luck attribute was higher than 8 or 6, or whatever it is, he would actually already be a champion of many tournaments as opposed to a two-time champion? One-time champion? Two-time champion. So, yeah, I'm sticking with that, man. The game opened up with him pool firsting versus a command center first. What are you gonna do? He did make a mistake as a player in the committal to the Cyclone defense, to be fair, but still, like, the opening was already unfair. It was already unlucky. And in the second game, again, it's not so much directly involved in luck, but, you know, the Overlord, does it scout it, does it not scout it? It's often down to luck. Just, yeah, does a Ling go the extra little foots? Like, does it foot get into the vision of the factories or not? For Solar, it's always, it doesn't. He's always just that far away. But he is otherwise a very, very good player. So even when it feels like he is just plain unlucky, a series of unfortunate events done by Solar, he still manages to bring it back. He still manages to perform well enough, you know, very close series, even after being down in the series, even after having a thus far subpar tournament. Well, should use that more often. Yeah, most people are unlucky, but they're also just plain old bad. Solar is really, really good and unlucky. Should have taken out of his charisma, right? He traded lucky for charisma and having the ability to speak English to appeal to foreign fans. Fool! Oh, loses the drone. I'm actually not sure why the Reaper had so long to bully the drones there. Now, GuMiHo is going into a 3cc build right into those Hellions. We'll see if he adds a starport or a barracks. Leaning towards a starport. Reaper's confirmed everything it needs to, which that Solar is not cheesing. And again, Solar is not really the weirdest, craziest, wacky guy. He will throw in early pools, roach cheeses. Not too often, though. Yeah, in case anyone was confused, I was making fun of that because it actually is much better that Solar is maybe, again, luck's a very vague and arguable term, but it's probably better that he's a little unlucky, but has such a presence for the foreign community in a game that shifted heavily and swiftly over to foreign fans. StarCraft 2 has never been all that popular in Korea. And he just has another skill in life whenever he does next after esports. He has fluent English. I gotta imagine that opens up the job pool a little bit. So he's doing all right. He's doing all right. So Hellion Banshee coming out, so a safer version of a 3cc. Also gives you some harassment opportunities. Solar doesn't know about this quite yet. He has actually 0 scouting. I was saying this in the first game. Solar very frequently, I would say, has very little direct scouting. He picks up on things by subtler things. You know, the Overlord doesn't see the factory building, whatever. But he might see the lack of supply depots, the amount of workers, the gas timings, perhaps the add-ons even, you know, like the more subtle things, basically. The way that someone's moving their units even. But sometimes he plays an entire best of 5 and this Overlord never sees anything. I really don't think I'm being dramatic with that. I think he actually has played an entire best of 5s where his Overlord sees nothing important. It stays here and sees Hellions, which is only one part of a bigger mystery. And he'll still be okay. It's not like he constantly gets blindsided by builds. In last game, he did, but that was forced errors. GuMiHo 3 racks him and then killed his Overlord. So that Overlord of Solar was capable of seeing that it is Stim on the way. Now, it could be a fake. It very easily could be a fake. With the way that GuMiHo has been playing this, I feel like this is almost like a mind game and a mind game, honestly. 2 games in a row, he mechs. Second game, he does a very convincing job of making you think that it's bio. Third game, you see his Stim as it starts. I mean, I'd be like, no, I don't believe you. And that would be the mind game. Because GuMiHo actually is going for bio. He really is, promise. Barracks are down, upgrades are on the way, and Solar probably wants to get a second confirmation. But so far is defaulting to the typical anti-bio response, bailing us on the way to evolution chambers. I mean, basically in a roach horn, right? He is correct to do that. GuMiHo going in a couple of tanks earlier on. He's got a very efficient build the way that he opened. His Howling Banshee hasn't done very much, but we never really expect them to. So now the Banshees are coming across the map. Thank you for everything you do for the StarCraft 2 community. Oh, thank you, Rusted Val. Technically, there's no way that you would know Sim is being researched. That could be combat shields, that could be Marauder slow. But for especially the professional scene, whiffle-waffing, even with the intent to mind game your opponent, is a dangerous game to play. You know? It might not sound like a big deal to fake someone out with the 50-50 upgrade that is Marauder slow, but depending on how long, anyways, that they are faked out, might not be worth it, might be worth it. So you just presume. With the rest of everything else looking like a very typical, very smartly lined up build, you should assume that's Stim. And combat shields first. It's not really beneficial. Well, Solar isn't looking so great in this third game. He loses his queens right off the bats. He does have enough Ling Baneling to hold and some difficult hooks finished up, so I'm not the most worried, but that wasn't great. That sucks to just lose 3 queens like that. All your creep spread as well. Absolutely no potential back and forth, because Solar had this good army. Baneling speed wasn't close to finish, was not quite finished, sorry, but he still probably could have been, you know, put his hands up and be like, ah! GuMiHo would have had to chill for a second. Nope. Now he's going to be mostly off of creep, making this at least a little bit more of an effective push from GuMiHo. And Solar gets rid of the tank and says, that's good enough for me, which right now it is. But the lack of creep spread for future parts of this TVZ is a bit scary. Creep spread going okay in other directions, though, and Solar has gotten his 4th over here. 5th here is probably going to be okay. By the time this actually is up and running and gets drones, typically the Zerg player has taken control over this midpoint. If they don't, well, then yeah, that's not really a 5th base it's going to mine. Hellbats are now involved. 1-1 is done for the Terran, not so for the Zerg. Another tank appears. GuMiHo is looking to abuse this particular spot, because that's what you do on Gressfawn. Decently large Baneling run by is going to try and cause some problems. Baneling's actually going to connect with the Marines. GuMiHo wasn't paying attention. He thought he had enough to defend it and focus on his Marines on the front lines. So that means at least the Baneling started out efficiently. It doesn't really result in too much more. 2-2 starts up for both players around the same time. Solar dealing with all of this pressure while also trying to play the rest of his game. He is still on 4 bases mining, so it's not like he's in super big trouble, but it's just the fact that the Terran is breathing down your neck. It is uncomfortable. So he is still trying to get to the rest of it. So Infestation Pit and Hydralisk Den just finished up. Hive should be started soon enough. Drop constantly threatening that main base. GuMiHo just sticking here. He is getting to the point in which his probably is not a good place to be anymore because he hasn't reinforced. So the supplies are even, but he hasn't reinforced. So Solar, I mean, he might actually be able to break that. For Solar, he has no idea what's there, and that's a real bummer. If he had scans or an observer, I think it's very different. But he has no idea if there's been reinforcements yet, how many tanks are actually over there. So, yeah, the reinforcements come around. Very courageous of GuMiHo to go for an orbital at this 4th. He actually has no pressure along this line. I'll talk about what I mean in a second. The SCVs get destroyed by the Banelings, and the orbital itself will probably have to be lifted. Now, the benefit of having an orbital is that you can lift it, so there's that. But none of the tanks are getting taken care of, and Solar is winning this game by completely avoiding the main engagement. Now that he is ready to go, he feels a lot more confident in taking the engagement. He's about to find out that the tanks aren't even that plentiful, and only one of them is sieged. I just take care of the Banshees, and this, well, I blame the orbital. I really do. And now, when I was talking about with the line, as you watch GuMiHo, he's dead. He lost this game, guys. As I was talking about this, so the attack path. You know, the nice thing about this map for Terrans that they do put a planetary here and they get a tank over as well or something else to help it is that they've pretty much cut off a lot of the attack path to the left. I mean, technically you can go around and like really take a long time, but it's not vulnerable to a handful of units. It kind of covers the space here and your main engagement covers these attack paths. Then the one you have to worry about is maybe up to the north, which is fair enough, but you even see Terrans completely wall this off sometimes. By going for this orbital, I think you're not just being audacious in the typical sense of having a fourth as an orbital. I think you're being more overconfident. You're you're opening up an opportunity for the Zerg, which Solar took advantage of at the exact right time, before those two tanks helped the Marines that were trying to secure the orbital. And Solar, as I said, had basically won the game there. I know GuMiHo is still sticking in it, but he is definitely out of his depth. He's never going to truly recover from this. I'll never financially recover from this. It's National Pet Day today. Oh, I have not spammed Instagram. GuMiHo's army supply does look fine, but we know what that really means when a Terran player has to engage. There's so many other factors in StarCraft 2 engagements that army supply is really never the end-all be-all. And if they're forced to engage on creep, then it's whatever, man. What even is numbers? The hatchery goes down for free. Solar not in position to cover it, doesn't even try to. Is probably still feeling pretty good on 5 bases. Well, I guess this one was killed, but going up to 5 bases, maxed out with Vipers and upgrades. Like, I think he's still feeling all right in this game. So GuMiHo gets a second chance at life, but I'm going to go ahead and say that he's still dead. Typical caster calling the game too early. GuMiHo's maxed out again. Whatever. Solar's got bases, he's got army, he's got run-bys, he's got spells, which is really the important thing, I suppose. He's got Vipers, he's got a surround. Check out this surround, man. Vipers getting 3-4 blinding clouds, taking out most of the tanks. Slings jump on top of him, and GuMiHo is now no longer maxed out, is he? Is he? Yeah. Certainly a chance that GuMiHo recovered there. I mean, if Solar was silly enough to run down this one ramp and then forget Vipers have a ability called Blinding Cloud, then... Okay, yeah, GuMiHo could have won. But now, especially after that one, GuMiHo is just... He's just really hoping this 5th base denial has impacted Solar more than it did. He knows there's a 4th base. He knows this 5th base is up now. And he will not be getting such a easy, clean 3-0 as he was hoping. Some typical play overall. Just specifically trying to abuse the map. Not working out. To clean up game 3. So Solar starts the comeback. We'll see if he can continue it. Game number 4 on Neo Humanity. We have our cat back. In the top left, it is Onside Gaming Solar. And in the bottom right, we have not Psystorm Gaming's GuMiHo. Damn it, it got me again. I'm gonna just double check that he didn't rejoin with them. No, he didn't. He left in February. He just never uses this account. No, especially Korean pro gamers are the worst at this. The pros just don't pay attention to their account for tournaments. They don't play on it very often, and they don't go through a checklist. You know, am I in the right clan? Do I have the right logo? Did I change my barcode to an actual name? Like, you just do whatever. So yeah, he's actually not on Psystorm. He's currently teamless, in fact, which I guess is a more useful bit of information. No one has picked him up after that. Rumor was he asked for more than Psystorm was willing to give, which I think is fair from both sides, really. If GuMiHo really thought he could find a better deal, good for him. So far, hasn't happened. For Psystorm to not increase the pay of a StarCraft 2 player, I'm not about to judge them for that. That's just the way that the scene is. Incredibly difficult. I do imagine we have some teams, especially with the likes of Basilisk, who probably are giving quite good salaries. But they've also picked up some of the star players who are not just champions, but also very charismatic. But even in a small scene like StarCraft, even if you were the most, like, brandable player, all other esports would love to have a player like you. You might not get the best of deals in StarCraft. There's really cookie crumbles. So I don't know what's really happening with GuMiHo. I'm glad to see he's still playing despite being teamless. I do hope he does get an offer that he'll be okay with. But it'll be very difficult. He might be looking towards Stormgate, as he has completed his military service. GuMiHo isn't charismatic, then why do I like him so much? I love GuMiHo. He's a sweet guy. He's he doesn't speak too much English, but he's always just kind of smiling along with everyone, and he tries whenever you ask him questions. I've never heard anything bad about him. And his play is just so fun to watch. I mean, this guy's gonna proxy a starport in TVZ. Who does that? GuMiHo does that. No one else does this. It's gonna be a Hellion drop into the main. Now, there is a reason no one else does this, to be fair. Oh, I'm sniping the creep. And the reason is that it's usually not all that effective. Yeah, you bamboozle the Zerg, who's totally always expecting the Hellions to come in from a forward direction. So their overlords cover a forward direction. They don't even cover this side of the map until they're worried about drops. But what usually happens is the Hellions get in, and they're like, oh man, freebies. Then the pool blocks them, and then they kind of skirt through here. The drones are pulled. Lings are speedy little bastards, and they come over. And the Hellions don't get great lineups because they've kind of tangled their own feet in the Sim City of the Zerg player. So it's almost never as effective as it sounds like it's gonna be. IMO. We'll see if I'm wrong. Maybe this is it, guys. Maybe this is the one. Third base under fire is just a ruse. Just to keep Solar paying attention elsewhere. Solar's gonna get in and see that it is no starport, but until he sees the complete base and the lack of third CC, he won't realize it's proxied. By the time he does that, hey, guess what? The proxy's already hitting you. So the timing doesn't really favor him here. And let's see if I was right. Let's see if this plays out. I swear I did not watch this game, but I've watched many Hellion drops before it. Speedy little bastards. Speedy little bastards. Actually, in this case, it was mostly the drone split that salvaged the situation. Nonetheless, the point still stands. You put the Hellions onto the defensive area of the Zerg. And unless they're totally Zerglingless, they should be able to deflect it. So six drones is better than you would get if you didn't proxy the starport. So there is that. You do have a proxied starport that is not producing back at home for an extended period of time. Either units or add-ons. And it is an add-on ho. Most of its time after Hellion production, a medevac drop. So, or whatever you built from it, Banshees or Viking Liberator, whatever it is. So there's that to consider. And you don't really feel safe adding like a tech lab to this, for instance, so. And the Zerg also knows that the amount of air harassment is probably pretty limited. So the Hellions not really finding too much more. The Liberator, I think, just got... Did I hear it? Did I hear it? Did I make it up in my mind? Where the hell is it? It did shoot. I don't know what it shot. But it shot something. Shot 3 things, actually. So in total, 12 drones go down. It's not bad. It's not bad damage. And it's not all that much committal from GuMiHo either, I guess. But... Eh... Yeah. There is something about it that screams GuMiHo didn't get enough. You look at the drone count, and that's great for Terran, who's dropping 2 mules at a time. Third CC is now about halfway done. But I think it goes back to the whole idea of there is a time period for the Zerg to thrive where the Terran builds all their stuff, regardless if they proxy or not. That Solar can now really thrive on. The Hellions are not even around anymore, really, to even try and threaten further run-bys, or threaten creep tumors, or threaten queens, or combine with a bio push-out later on. Again, no starport worry. Maybe Banshees could have arrived, and you'd have been like, ah. Yeah, I think Solar's totally fine. And it really was a decent amount of Hellions too, right? It was 10 Hellions produced. And when you make 10 Hellions, regardless of a proxy or not, you are expecting a return that I think is better than 12 drones over 75 seconds or whatever it was. So 12 drones at minute 4 is different than 12 drones over minute 4 through 6. And enough of that. GuMiHo's decided to just, land that starport as quick as possible. That makes a lot of sense. You see this all the time in StarCraft. Okay, well, that's apparently going to do a thing. We have the third base coming down. 5 Hellions. Wait, is he still producing Hellions? He's still producing Hellions. Oh. Well, I don't like this out of principle, honestly. I'm a big hater on the idea of Hellions substituting. That's the word. Substituting tanks and Widow Mines. I get the idea of an early 10 Hellion pressure. Obviously, you build Hellions for meching. Time has a build, or some Terrans have a build where they do include 12 Hellbats with the first push. Those are okay, but I don't know about this one. Ling's getting into the natural. It's not the best engagement they could have taken, but it did trade out a little bit. Okay. Armory is now finished, so we can start up 2-2. 2 factories should be moving on to the producing Widow Mines. Yeah, okay, good. And combat shield's finally on the way as well. Solar has taken the opportunity provided by the lack of aggression thus far. Now it's starting up again to get up to 73 drones, 4 bases, decent amount of creep spread. Baneling speed is about to finish. That's a little bit questionably timed. Solar might not have actually known if it was Mech or Bio. I kind of forgot to check that because I was amused by the starport and the proxies. He actually didn't realize. He might not have realized it was Bio until the Ling got in or something. Because I'm looking at why he has 5 Ravagers mostly. He could have been, like, Dark sometimes really does purposely play into Ling, Baneling, Ravager, into Hive and all that, but I think this is just like a little bit odd of an amount. This might have been a what if Roach Rorn, and now you just use the Roaches you did create to make Ravagers, which are better units. But mostly still going into Ling Baneling. Hive is on the way alongside Aspire, and the timing of this really does suggest a attempted direct integrator Spire directly into Broodlords. Broodlords are not gotten particularly quickly against bio players because mobility is a huge issue for them. Neo-Humanity is a bit more of a linear map, I suppose. It's like narrower. That's a difficult word. It's more narrow than, say, Gressfon. I don't know if it's enough to really say that that's the reason he's going into fast Broodlords. But they certainly are a surprise. Most of the time, Terrans aren't really trying to check for these types of technologies. They scan the Hive and they go, well, of course, the timing of the Hive. And then they probably presume it's Vipers or Ultras or whatever. They're not going to scan every other base to determine what technology is actually on the way. Oh, that was a nasty Widowmine shot right there. Boom. 29 kills on that bad boy. Boom. What are these 8 Hellions still doing? Just chilling. Just chilling. Upgrades so beautifully timed together. Hive is finishing up for Solar so he can get into Vipers if he wants to, if he needs to. It's been Widowmine present so far though, so I don't know if Vipers... like 1 maybe. Greater Spire on the way. Like I said, the timing of it was just too damn coincidental. And if... Broodlords are always going to be good if you can arrive on your opponent's doorstep without them realizing you're going into a Greater Spire. That's true for all matchups, even ZVZ, in which they're really not very good. But if you get 10 Broodlords and the Zerg doesn't expect it, you know. And I think that's what Solar's going for in this game. Not only that, I will say that Neo-Humanity, despite having some of the left and right to be a playground for Terran, it does very typically just go right into this base is the target. Especially as both players acknowledge we're headed into the late game. There's no, 8 racks, 3 base all in. It really does rely a lot on the back and forth of this area and these bases and cracking this planetary. So if Broodlords can just be set on one single path to their opponent's base, that's when they're really good. And GuMiHo just still has no idea. He's bouncing between left and right, clearing up creep spread, defending would-be run-bys. Solar now actually needs to sacrifice some units, so we'll probably get rid of some Ling Baneling, maybe even the Ravagers. Well, I think 5 Ravagers might be pretty helpful. But then he's going to add in more Broodlords, because he did make enough Corruptors. There you go. That's all the Broodlords now on the way. GuMiHo completely unaware. Might even be just kind of fist-pumping right now, because that was a decent engagement for him. Canceled the one command center that was under fire, otherwise completely intact. Drop going in the natural as well. So yeah, GuMiHo should be fist-pumping right now. He's going to grab that +3 armor. Yes, he is, despite the transfuses trying to come down. The drop will be cleaned up long before it even witnesses anything about Broodlords, though. So that is still the main problem. I don't know where the hell they are. There they are, about to reveal themselves. And GuMiHo's like, what the hell? Really? This fast of Broodlords? He is immediately evacuating, but what is his response? Thors? Vikings are on the way from his hidden base. I don't know, hidden star? I don't know what to call it. On the way from his only starport. No additional ones. Thor's on the way. Ghosts are on the way. And obviously, if you build this many Broodlords against someone who already has 10 ghosts, it's not exactly that great. But that's another perk to just how fast Solar got to these things. Ghosts are not out yet. Trickling out at this point. Not guaranteed to get snipes anywho. This one Viper that he did end up making is going to go for maybe a Blinding Cloud. Force the bio to move forth into the Ling Baneling. No Corruptors is the downside here. He turned literally every Corruptor into a Broodlord, so he doesn't have the creep spread. He's also losing a base back at home. GuMiHo managing to buy some time. Very much necessary time buying. Kills, I think, a would-be base. And evacuates with some units. Those queens supposed to transfusing are going to die instead, and it looks like GuMiHo will temporarily, at least for now, hold against the Broodlord surprise. He does lose access to this middle base and is not yet mining from the left side. But his bank's okay, and he can certainly still recover. Big believer in that. Would want these to be in single target mode. There we go. I'm actually more worried at this point by the amount of Ling Baneling. I don't see a lot of Widowmines, no tanks either, and the army is awfully clumped up. Everything getting hit by the Banelings. Thor even getting some splash there. And all of GuMiHo's army is disappearing or running away, which means that it's not actually attacking. And well, GuMiHo could not stabilize. In one fell swoop, Solar delivers with the Broodlord Ling Baneling composition. He's looking to win this game. GuMiHo still has some bank left over. He still has a decent amount of mining. He knows that he can, you know, maybe bring this back. There have been bigger comebacks, but it's not looking super likely. Solar is going to lose the army, but has a huge bank. Still has enough mining going on himself, even after a couple of drops. Did hit GuMiHo's SEV count, so it's not just all things back to normal for the Terran. And is now moving on to some Ultras, which don't have their upgrades yet. So GuMiHo will get some time to breathe. Can he recover? It's going to be one of the tougher games to do so. Orbital turning into a command center, turning into orbital in the bottom left is going to help a little bit. Mules being dropped. Going out for a couple of drops as well. Looking to kill some hatcheries. His starport finally is discovered. That only took 15 minutes. And GuMiHo ain't giving up this location. No, sir. Continue building medevacs from there. Bit of a useless drop as he sees the Lings respond. What the hell? Oh, that tank from the high ground, from half court. It's protecting this little halfway. Again, still very stubborn about keeping the medevac reduction here. Never moving the starport. 3 factories is a good amount. Planetary helping to protect his orbital 4th, actually. GuMiHo has tons of mules. Problem is, he doesn't have tons of army, necessarily. The army supply wasn't too bad, but he wasn't quite prepared to take the engagement. This is all before Carapace, by the way. Chitinous plating only now completing, but it looks like it's already too much. GuMiHo not able to get a proper engagement going. Is going to get overwhelmed once again. See some superhero marauder micro. But Lings are chewing away on his production and reinforcements the entire time. And, well, second time you get Lings in your natural. So looking a little less likely you can make a comeback. Now this would be one of the bigger comebacks to happen in DBZ. Solar's taking the right side bases, mining them, taking what is pretty much GuMiHo's right side base. Tons of orbitals that are vulnerable to Ling run bys as GuMiHo is scrambling all over the map to protect the bases. He had to finally lift that starport. Tiny violin the starport, everyone. And oof. SEV transfer into banelings. All right. Good times. Good time to be a worker, huh? GuMiHo had just replaced 20 workers. Now he's losing 30. GG. Solar brings us to a game 5. In the bottom right of Babylon for the last game of the series, it is Solar. The top left, we have GuMiHo. GuMiHo starting the series off with a 2-0. Really clean battle mech play into standard mech, into spooky mech. Then he had a mind game victory in game 2. And then kind of lost out, and the more typical games started coming. I would say a Hellion drop, while very rare, versus Zerg, I would not consider it to be cheesy or particularly unique either. If you hadn't picked up on it during the game, I'm just not really a fan of it. I think its reward never is really all that high. Its sacrifice isn't all that high either, I suppose, but yeah. GuMiHo insisting on Hellion production too, either because he was scared of the run-by potential, the counterattack potential, or because he had plans with Hellions, and they, as a whole, you know, made like 14 Hellions, and they were all a bit underwhelming. So what's he gonna do for game 5? Because we are looking at him. Solar's thus far not really doing anything cheesy, just a simple pull first in the first game, and I expect that to continue, especially as we have a totally normal opening for the Zerg. It's GuMiHo, who's a bit more unique. He's the Terran. He's got to be the one choosing the builds and doing the things. And Zerg's the one that's reacting. In a game of, you know, what do you want for dinner? The Terran is the one that has to put their foot down and say something and make everyone else abide by it. Don't you love playing that game with like 20 people? Where do you guys want to go? I don't know. What fits 20 people? Nothing. Well, how about that taco place? No, I don't like tacos. Having been a designated organizer of many LAN hangouts before I was casting in them, that was not a fun time. In fact, I think towards the last year and a half before I started casting the live events, I actually just stopped doing it. I just, anytime someone would be like, we're gonna organize a little get together, I'm like, you do that. And Zerg girl started picking up the slack. Bless her heart. He doesn't like tacos. Well, I'm not really a fan of. I have to be in the mood, I guess. But I don't think if there was 20 people, I'd suck it up. The truth is, if it was a StarCraft 2 event, as we watched pretty typical openers, if it was a StarCraft 2 event, we didn't say tacos. 100% everyone said, where's the nearest Korean barbecue? Because if you were in a StarCraft 2, you had to have a little Korea boo in you. Even if you didn't like Korea at all. Even if you were racist. You were dragged to Korean barbecues. So the typical build coming out from GuMiHo is actually a little less typical than I thought. The reactor stayed on the barracks and is producing Marines. So we're gonna have a little bit of a push, drop thingy. No? Liberator's on the way. Korean barbecue tacos? Yeah, those are pretty good. Well, Korean barbecue was not only, you know, StarCraft, Korea, Korean food. There's also that Korean barbecue is usually very accepting of large groups. Even in Korea, it means you're packed in like sardines in Korea, but even in Korea, it's, you know, it's an event. So that was a reason. Good times, though, good times. Now I just show up to do the work and leave. Ugh. I'm just thankful when I get to have a drink at the bar for with some friends for an hour. So this is GuMiHo has done this before, you know, which is to say not a very committed 1-1-1 opener. You know, like he actually is ideally still getting 2 Marines for a bigger Marine push later on. So it's not a 2-1-1. It's not a Hellion opener. It's something kind of in between, a mix of them. It gives him a lot of Marines. It gives him fairly fast medevacs, and it gives him Hellions with that. So all combined together, if you do surprise the Zerg, who's thinking maybe, hey, this guy didn't make any Hellions, maybe he's 2-1-1ing me. Well, suddenly a bunch of Hellions appear, or the medevacs appear later. So then you start to doubt, is it 2-1-1? Is it? What is it? GuMiHo pulled his SCVs, by the way, because he saw the amount of Lings Solar was coming across the map with. Solar did not actually choose to attack, however, so they just went back to mining. But the question then is, does Solar figure out what the hell is going on? And I don't know. I don't know if he has. He certainly hasn't seen the production in the main base, but he might have gotten a glimpse of the army composition, which might have given him the information. But again, as far as it being like a straight up 2-1-1, well, that would have already hit. Is it a 3cc 2-1-1? That would be hitting now. Is it something with Hellions? Because I saw one. What does that mean? I don't know. Is it 4 racks? No, because a Hellion appeared. It's a bit weird. GuMiHo is now appearing on Solar's side of the map with about 16 Marines, but a minute later than a 2-1-1 would, and without a 3rd CC. So what the hell was the benefit of the opener? The Hellions, which don't do very much. Liberator sieges up into a Spore Crawler. Queens and Lings deal with the Marines in the main base, and this is just a straight-up disaster. I think not only was GuMiHo hoping that Solar would be a little more confused, but I think GuMiHo had 2 options. In the first option, as in like the first priority option, what you would usually go for is you'd bulk up your Marines and your Hellions, and you'd fight together as one. Because the Lings chase after the Marines to get the surround, let the Banelings hit, and the Hellions push off the Lings, and it's this dance. And that's actually kind of what I was alluding to earlier when I said that Time and a couple of Terrans do that. But then GuMiHo thought maybe that he'd be clever again, or maybe thought it wouldn't work that way. So he sent his Marines in one place and his Hellions in another, and that just was so easy for Solo to clean up. The Liberator also cleaned up as quick as it was. And then GuMiHo straight up lost all of his army to make it the worst possible outcome. It's an ouch. Yeah, I mean, that's the way I'm going to put it. It's ouch. GuMiHo really not set up in an ideal position. Doesn't even have double upgrades. There's only a 1 engineering bay for this. This tank count is starting to rise, and he still has a couple of drops going. But Solar, to me, seems like he is going to finish this best of 5 with victory. Another complete removal of the Terran, but good save from GuMiHo. Save the tank, save the Marines. So they're going to manage to grab a bit of an upgrade lead, but it looks of it as well if he starts his 2-2 immediately, going into Baneling Hydra. GuMiHo, I thought I was going to go into a 4th command center on location. Not on location, but he is going for a 4th command center. At this point in time, it's very possible GuMiHo has recognized there really is no salvaging the opening. He tried to do a couple of drops, tried to do a cheeky little tank move out. No, not happening. So he is going to go basically more into turtle mode. Turtle mode includes usually a double-double. So 2 medevacs to the right, 2 medevacs to the left, except we don't have enough medevacs to do that. And then everything else stays at home. Great wall of supply depots coming down. Tanks sieging up in the most abusive of positions. Widow Mines about to cover them as well. And I do love when a Turtle Terran does both Widow Mines and tanks. But Solar, eventually also identifies this, right? Eventually goes, okay, there's no extra attack. There's no other attack. There's no other attack. Okay, I think I know what you're doing. And then they get the creeps. Well, the creep start's already kind of insane. They get the bases. They get the technology. And Solar... Anytime I've said that kind of order of words, Solar gets to thrive here. Gets to do what he wants. Solar has won the game. It's when Solar was on the back foot against Battle Mech, and when he was under false pretenses, he thought it was Bio, it was Mech. That's when he lost the 2 games. Every other one, it's turned into a bit more of a macro game. Solar has 1. So, while some Terrans can abuse this, and I'm sure some Zergs out there are really frustrated when Terrans do this, go turtle mode and, you know, dig their heels in, I have a high confidence that Solar will be able to kill GuMiHo. GuMiHo still doesn't have a super ideal composition. Solar, roly-poly in here, has almost nothing to worry about. Almost nothing. The drop does appear on the right side, and Solar's completely out of position, so this is a very effective drop. Gonna kill a decent amount of drones. This turns into a drop on the left side, but Solar aware enough to actually segment his army. Is he though? Is he though? Well, 8 drones go down. GuMiHo buys some much needed time, but this did not turn into a drop. Never mind. It's okay. So GuMiHo gets his 4th base up as a planetary, continues adding on Splash, which is really the thing that's missing. Marauders as well, making his army chunky. Where were those Widow Mines suddenly appearing out of nowhere? And Solar has all the options. Lurker Den, getting their upgrades. Adrenal glands for abusive lings. 1 Viper. He loves 1 Viper, doesn't he? I thought last game it was just really... I don't know. I just figured 1 Viper is always good, right? So yeah, I do agree with that. But I called 1 Viper last game because I thought his whole purpose was to get Broodlords. With a more typical Ling-Bailing army and enough gas, I would have expected 3. Super minor point, super minor point. Point is, more so, Solar is in control. He's in the lead. He's one of every unit, there's no counter. Yeah. And 3-3... no, +3 Carapace, rather, is starting up at the same time as GuMiHo's +3 attack. GuMiHo is maxed out. He does have some decent splash, and he is getting on his way to Ghosts. He's almost there in terms of being as properly set up as a late-game Turtle Terran can be, which gives me a little more faith. I was quite afraid that he was going to get cracked when his Marine army was running away down here. Really thankfully for this drop buying that amount of time. The game did not end, and GuMiHo, I think, now has a solid chance. Still Zerg favored in terms of the presence. One drop cleaned up in the main, another drop cleaned up at the 5th, 6th. You think I would cast the maps enough to know that if a base is in the corner, it's a 6th base, but I've never considered tracking that. Sensor Tower is always a good kill if you can get it. And Solar is looking to stop GuMiHo from advancing to the bottom left. It's not a very map-heavy, base-heavy map. It's a bit on the smaller side in general as well. So Solar would ideally stop the Terran from digging their heels in, particularly right here. Their first 4 bases, there's something somewhat just not a lot you can do about it, but to allow them to get their 5th base set up right next to your 7th, nope, you don't want that. You want to kill them before then. Disengagement's okay. Took advantage of what looked to be a lack of splash, but that was one hell of a concave that GuMiHo have been able to create, so Solar is better off running away. Nidus Worm's coming up, though. Continuing to add on the options here. Solar's going to have a lot of options. Like I said, really, ideally, you don't let them get to this bottom left base. That's a planetary they can always fall back to and then springboard off of whenever they feel like they can. Solar is going to try and take advantage less so of you know, killing this space, which would be very difficult down this one ramp, but he's trying to take advantage of this space here, which is so spread out that the splash units, tanks and Widow Mines, would most likely be less effective. However, it is still off creep, and if GuMiHo is paying attention, then the bio has a lot of room to spread, so there's that. There's those things to consider. I think GuMiHo also had a drop up to the top right, which looks like it was last minute saved by a couple of transfuses, so that's nice for Solar, who is mining happily on 93 drones. So he is going to be building quite a big bank. He actually is adding on lurkers now, which he has been upgrading and building up to. Actually, he doesn't have the speed upgrade, but the range one's more important anyways. Scan reveals a couple of transfuse queens, that's it. They're going to go down to the snipes. Alongside everything else, I guess. But GuMiHo, not super well protected on the left side, is he? There's no army, basically. That planetary might just be a goner or not. Yes, the Banelings do take that out. That was an easy call there for Solar. Just needed to actually do the mechanics of it. And now he is forced to run up to the top right to stop this drop from doing more damage. Losing that one hatchery is not a super big deal. For GuMiHo, losing this base is a bigger deal, but not the end of the world quite. There's another base up here. But it is concerning. You just start to feel more and more squeezed as the Terran in this situation. Solar is still overbearing in his presence on the map. The creep spread, the army movement, the amount of army type that he has. And his good old-fashioned Ling Baneling roly-polying in. Planetary not done, not going to be able to help out. Targeting the Ghost, going to get the Planetary as well. And then Solar does retreat. He's used all of his Banelings on that. So GuMiHo might try and do a counterattack, and that's... I think is exactly what he's doing. That's the best thing he can do, right? Back down to 4 bases he goes. Lifting his orbital, I think. Or he already did, I don't know. Yeah, lifting his orbital. Solar just needs to buy some time, get to some Banelings, and he'll probably be okay with a creep spread still on his side. GuMiHo did unsiege his tanks, did push out a little bit to clear up the creep, but ultimately not going to try and Hail Mary, throw this game away. Just take some more defensive position. Orbital, though, not a planetary there. Good abduct on the tank, good snipes on the lurkers. Lurker over here doing some harassment, so we're taking the bottom left base as well now. Still working on 90 drones. Now getting the burrow speed as well. Because they do look quite slow when they don't have it. When they have it, they look amazing, and they're too stupid and they're too fast. When they don't have it, yeah, I guess they're kind of slow. Now, these lurkers aren't really doing it. I mean, you have just built lurkers into an army composition of the Terran that does pretty well against it, which is ghosts. Ghost, good unit. So the lurkers aren't looking super impressive, and especially since they can't micro, they are very much not impressive. But Solar's making headway regardless. Solar has a lot of flexibility. He's got a lot of room to play. And even though he is starting to lose out on that bank, and each moment he takes a bad fight, it gets more and more worrisome. We're not there yet. That bank is depleted. 80 drones will ensure efficient mining. But this is when a Zerg should feel a little more cautious. They're like, oh shit, I don't have 2,000 to just rebuild immediately. Here comes the Nidus Worm, something that GuMiHo does not seem to spot. He is pulling back his army, but no reinforcements popped to help kill the Nidus Worm, so I don't... Did he not see? No, he didn't see that. Oh, his army was just moving for the sake of moving. No, he did not see that in the main base. Lurkers pop out. They're not super difficult to deal with if you got ghosts. The problem is they pull an army away, and even if it is only the ghost, that is still worrisome for the rest of the game, but this was taken care of easy peasy. Once again, Lurkers looking a little underwhelming. 13 drones going down at the same time due to... I'm missing harassment every now and again. Solar's lost drones and rebuilt them. Liberators or something, I don't know. So Solar is having a heck of a time killing this guy. GuMiHo managing to secure this 5th base, is the lifeline that they needed. He's holding on for dear life, but he's got it. Still finding enough cash to actually make some good units like Ghosts and Liberators. I think Solar would be better off not going into Lurkers. Because I like the idea of having them as a tech swap. Really changing the pace of the game and the way that the engagements happen. The Terrans could very well be caught off guard by that. Obviously, them as harassing units and Nidus Worm in the main base can always be problematic. But really, you don't really go into Lurkers in the late game so much. Because their counter is already there for the Terran. If Terran is on late game Turtle, Ghost, Tank, Bio, Lurkers are not a huge problem. I feel like, Massling, Baneling, Hydras are so much better. Which is what Solar is now doing. Tearing down the planetary, which didn't have too much mining anyways, but still one less base. 21 SCVs go down. A couple of ghosts, heard them screaming. And Solar, I think, is just on a better composition, honestly. I think those lurkers slowed him down and were wastes of supply and time. Yeah. I'm not even willing to give him credit for, catching GuMiHo off guard. Massling Baneling, my dude. GuMiHo back down to 4 bases. Not really. 2.5. Nidus Storm's gonna block his orbital. We have a Nidus... Oh, I thought there was a nuke. It's just a Nidus Storm. And we have... Ooh, Shark Infester. Shark Fester, Shark Fester, Shark Fester. Down it, down it, down it. Could either go for the fungal on the ghost or the EMP. I mean, dark we go for the EMP. Oh, what? Man, just avoid the scan. Solar wants this so bad. One thing that we do have to recognize in this late game is that GuMiHo's army supply is so much farther ahead than Solar's. He is ahead by 40 army supply default. It's pretty scary, especially in a defensive stance. Tank gets abducted, but what is this? What is this? What is this? How is this ever going to go well? I'm really surprised Solar took that engagement. That couldn't have been more awkward. I guess he was kind of close to killing GuMiHo because GuMiHo was all bunched up, but... Well, imagine if the fungal had come down. I think the Infestor got caught. Oh, Infestor. And now I am actually very concerned for Solar. He is not able to take enough engagements after engagements. Like, that was the biggest green light for GuMiHo. He took an engagement kind of easily there, and then was bound to counterattack. Solar does remake his Banelings, but that is one chonky army, so what he needs, and it's just bigger. It's 30 army supply bigger. What Solar needs to do is take a decent army engagement 3 or 4 times, and then it's all still fine and dandy. But if you open up the opportunity for the Terran to counterattack you and you can't remax fast enough, you are still in trouble. Solar now looking for another engagement off of creep into a kind of prepared Terran. Does take down a decent number of those Marines, as well as completes a lot of SCV kills. GuMiHo had actually added on a couple of command centers, at least one more, thinking that he was getting enough cash to do so. Now he's probably wishing he had 400 more minerals. As the army supplies do get closer, Solar worried me for a second. But it seems like now the plan is underway. Again, just enough decent engagements to eventually overwhelm the person who has a bigger army if they're maxed out. Well, now GuMiHo can't get maxed out. So it's the same size army. Solar might be able to take a good engagement. He's also gone back into lurkers, which... I don't know. I don't know about this. I don't know. I'm not usually one to shake my head at 15 lurkers, but... a couple of lurkers are harassing GuMiHo down to 0 mining. I think at this point Solar could go into whatever he wants and it would win. And it is winning. Catching GuMiHo's army a little just kind of spread out, too spread out. SCVs, don't know where the hell they were going to go anyways. Parasitic Bomb looking to tear down some of the medevacs, which have been alive for a very long time. And once again, some Shark Festers waiting. Waiting. Once again, barely avoiding a scan. Freebie Hydra kills, always nice. Solar not mining very much more either, by the way. This hatchery's dead, this hatchery's dead. But he's maxed out, so it's okay. He's ahead by 40 army supply as well. If GuMiHo was still an even army supply or ahead in army supply, I'd still be very, very concerned. This could go either way. Solar has a bigger army supply and is gonna get the fungal! The ghost completely useless! Finally, the trigger was pulled and Solar is guaranteed to win now. Oof. Brutal, absolutely brutal. This game did get closer than I was giving it credit for. As of minute 6.5, basically, I was already a non-believer in GuMiHo. His opening just was, frankly terrible. It did not do what it needed, and it got killed. So that was pretty bad. But GuMiHo brought it to 23 minutes and still seemed to have a chance up until those ghosts were fungled. GG's. Solar brings the series back from a 2-0. And wins that particular Open Cup. I hope you all enjoyed the cast. Please like, subscribe, follow the YouTube channel, all good stuff, and I'll see you for more StarCraft later. Bye-bye.